cigarette. Things Monday. Give up smoking. Yep. Right. Tuesday. Well, I haven't done very well. This is all the cigarettes I smoked yesterday, and but I am definitely going to give up today. It's Tuesday today, and I'm definitely going to give up today. Well, I didn't do very well yesterday, and it's now Wednesday, and I smoked an awful lot of cigarettes yesterday, and this is disgusting. I'm definitely going to give up today.
The nicotine in cigarettes is a highly addictive drug. Smoking physically changes the brain, making it more receptive to nicotine. These brain scans show what happens when the same amount of nicotine is given to a smoker and a non-smoker. The red areas indicate high nicotine levels. Far more nicotine reaches the smoker's brain, proving that it's different from a non-smoker's brain. Once the brain has been affected, the dependence on nicotine becomes very powerful.
So when my dad was ill from smoking, I tried to stop smoking. He was at the hospital like every couple of weeks and that. They done untold tests, they stuck cameras down his throat and everything to find out what this was. They couldn't find out what it was, so he had an operation and they cut open all his lung, all the back of his back to get to his lung. And they took a bit of it off and they just found out that it was pleurisy or something on the lungs, but smoking's really bad for him. And when he was up there, when he was ill in bed smoking, he asked my mum to bring him up fags that day as well. Just wanted a fag straight away.
All forms of addiction have one thing in common. You do something and get a reward. This cycle is true for all addictions, whether they're drug-related or psychological. In gambling, you place a bet and the reward comes when you win. In smoking, the reward comes when the nicotine causes the brain to release a chemical called dopamine.
Red 12 wins.
When dopamine is released, it gives us a very good feeling, a slight high, a slight lift, a slight buzz. And we want to smoke again because we want to have that buzz again. This reward or high is called positive reinforcement. If you do something and then get a reward, you'll tend to do that thing again.
When a new smoker draws on a cigarette, the rush of nicotine gives them a high. When they stop smoking, the body soon returns to its normal state with no nicotine. But in a regular smoker, the body gets used to a certain level of nicotine, and that becomes its normal state. The problem comes when you deprive a regular smoker of their nicotine fix. If their nicotine level drops below normal, they begin to experience withdrawal. They feel restless and irritable. They crave their next cigarette. The more the addict smokes, the less powerful the high. They need the next cigarette just to feel normal.
You want to have a puff?
No!
I can have a puff!
No!
I can have a puff!
No, you can't!
Oh, I can!
Go on!
No, you...
I'll just have a puff!
Go on, quick puff. Whee! That's the slippery road.
No, I think it's, you know, it's
man.
choice. It's all about choice. And you made that choice and it's the wrong one.
No, that was horrible.
What smoking?
That was
No,
horrible. I'm definitely not going to smoke. Well, it's now exactly 2 weeks since I stopped smoking, and I'm smoking again. I'm thoroughly ashamed of myself.
3 weeks on, George seeks professional help.
On a bad day, I smoked over 100 a day, never less than 60, and I knew it was killing me. I didn't need doctors to tell me, it was blatantly obvious. I had a permanent smoker's cough. I'd wake up and sometimes take my nose bleed in the mornings with this pressure of coughing. The only thing that keeps any smoker smoking is a subtle combination of two reasons. One is the actual chemical addiction to nicotine. But what the chemical addiction does is to confirm the real problem, which is up here in our brains. Right from birth, we are hit with massive daily advertising telling us that cigarettes relax us, give us courage, give us confidence. Every time you've seen a film or a play, the cigarette is being used either as a social prop, a sexual prop, or as giving us courage and confidence. And we actually believe this.
And will you be happy, Charlotte?
Oh, Jerry, don't let us ask for the moon. We have the stars.
It's fear that keeps people smoking, and one particular tobacco company has cottoned onto this. They actually are using fear in their adverts. They're cutting a piece of purple material and a shark's fin, all sorts of things. They're even telling you they've got you hooked, which again gets you more like this, which makes you want to reach for a cigarette.
The regulations on cigarette advertising are very tough. You're not allowed to say a cigarette tastes good, you're not allowed to say it makes you more attractive to the opposite sex, and you're not allowed to associate cigarettes with anyone under 25 years old. This makes the advertising even more creative. People have to try harder. So they're trying to do two things. The first thing is to shock you, stop you in your tracks, make you look at the ad. And the second is to get you into a dialogue, to make you think about their advertising and make you think about what it is they're trying to say to you. So you get images like barbed wire, where people will stop in the street and say, what does barbed wire have to do with cigarettes? And then what you do is you make them stop and work it out. So not only are you shocking them to stop them, but then you're being clever in order to make them work it out. And that in turn makes the consumer feel clever.
In America, a tobacco company is using advertisements which appeal to children.
90% of all new smokers are children, and that's because adults in general are too mature to start smoking. My research shows that they use cartoon advertisements like this and other advertisements that encourage children to smoke. This particular ad was 10 times more effective at getting children to smoke Camel cigarettes than it was at getting adults to smoke Camel cigarettes. This puts this particular company in a very good position for the future because they're getting a lot of kids smoking their Camel cigarettes, and they're going to be making a lot of money off of them for many years to come.
Children and young people are much better at understanding and interpreting advertising than adults anyway. They're much more likely to talk about an advertising campaign that they think is cool. And one of the things that advertisers in other fields love is what they call playground repeats. If you can get the kids to talk about your ad in the playground, then you've got another free exposure. So kids see it and they talk about advertising more, they understand it better.
Some countries have banned all smoking advertisements. But in Britain, tobacco advertising is much less restricted.
Tobacco is a perfectly lawful product. It's been around in this country for 400 years. And unless we're prepared to live in an increasingly over-regulated society, I believe we should have the freedom to address our legitimate adult customers.
Whatever the tobacco companies say, there is no doubt that tobacco advertising encourages people to start smoking, and that was the conclusion of the government's own economic report. Politicians have got it in their power to save lives far more effectively than doctors and nurses, and they ought to do it now by banning tobacco advertising.
I don't think smoking ads should be banned, but I think they should censor where they put them so that it doesn't attract the attention of younger children as much as it would now, like in the billboards and stuff.
If you ban tobacco advertising, you release all that money to be used in much more subtle methods of marketing and publicity. Things like sponsoring Grand Prix motorcars, sporting events. Those things do get youngsters hooked, and I don't want to see the money spent in that way.
This man of 53 who smoked himself to death 20 years too soon because he's been smoking and he developed a cough and produced some blood and went to his doctor, who did a chest x-ray and showed indeed there was a tumour. In 2 months he's dead.
Although nicotine is poisonous, you can't get enough from smoking to kill you. There are many other chemicals in cigarette smoke, and they are grouped together as tar. Each one of these flasks contains the dissolved tar from just one cigarette.
This is an example of tar. This thick, black, treacly substance has over 4,000 chemicals in it. We know that it causes cancer. We know that it causes a narrowing of the airways into the lungs. We know that it causes an increase in mucus production. And we certainly know that it damages the little hairs that line the lungs, which help to protect the lungs from dirt and diseases.
So the x-ray looks absolutely fine. Then we know we're going to have
It's possible to look inside the lungs and airways to check for damage by putting a camera down through the nose.
But you shouldn't feel any pain at all. I'm just going inside the nose now, and it's a bit difficult to get a decent view to start with. As we just go inside there, we're going towards the back of the nose, and in a second we'll appear at the back of the nose. Here we are, going out of the back of the nose now, and as I explained, the back of the nose joins up with the back of the mouth. I know exactly where we are on the screen now. We're looking at the back of your throat from the inside. And as we move down a bit, we'll begin to see the entrance to your voice box. This thing which is going horizontally across the screen is the epiglottis. It's like a little valve which flaps down over the voice box when we're swallowing, so that food goes down the gullet, the esophagus, into the stomach and doesn't go down into the windpipe. We're just coming up to the vocal cords now. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to say hello to me, and we'll see them move. Say hello.
Hello.
And in a second, what we're going to do is we're going to nip through the voice box there, through the vocal cords, into the windpipe, going down into the lungs. That's lovely. And through the vocal cords we go into the windpipe. Now, the windpipe, as I can see it here, is reinforced with rings of cartilage. You can actually see those. In fact, they're horseshoe-shaped rather than ring-shaped. Horseshoe-shaped cartilage. That's fine. We've got an excellent view now. Just here we've got the division into your right lung and your left lung. And we can see how the tubes actually branch. Just now you can see it dividing and subdividing as we go look into all those little holes. That all looks absolutely fine. And I then go on down towards the bottom of your right lung. So I'm actually looking down here now. Right lung. I'm looking right down the bottom of your right lung now. And I can see these various tubes dividing and subdividing. It all looks beautifully normal. A nice non-smoker's lung.
The effect of smoke on the lungs is very dramatic.
Here are the contents of the chest, the neck organs, the heart in the middle in its sac, and on each side the lungs. Now, even the normal lung, we can see, is black, with all the soot that he's inhaled with that smoke over the ears. And the affected lung is even blacker still, and the bottom of the lung is solid. Whereas the normal lung is quite squidgy, this affected part of the lung is quite solid. It's stuffed with pus. We must now look inside the trachea, the windpipe, to see just what was making him cough so, and where that blood came from. I can get down here on both sides, but there's growth here that I can feel. You can see that there's the blood-filled tubes on either side. We've got this white mass of tumour, so that when my doctor friends looked down a little telescope, they could see that this was growing through the wall of these air tubes here, and that's what was giving him his cough, and it was that which was causing this bleeding.
OK, Bill, I'd like you to take some normal breaths now.
Many smokers are willing to risk their lives for cigarettes, but they don't always appreciate.
I'm just going to tap on your lungs now to see how much air is in the chest. And you can hear that that's a very resonant note, which to me implies that there is quite a lot of air trapped inside the lungs, and that is one of the key features of the condition that we know of as emphysema. Emphysema is caused by chronic cigarette smoking in most people, And what actually happens is that the lung tissue itself gets damaged by chemicals which get switched on by the cigarette smoke. And the chemicals attack the lungs, and they can cause the elastic tissue in the lungs to become disrupted, broken down, and you actually get holes forming in the lungs.
Bill can still walk, but as each day passes it becomes more difficult. His whole life has been affected by his damaged lungs. Another major cause of death for smokers is heart disease, where the arteries become blocked.
Smoking cigarettes accelerates aging of the arteries and disease in them, and so even quite young people can end up with coronary artery disease and die of it. We are going to take a vein from his leg and an artery from inside the chest wall to bypass the blockages in his arteries, and this will remove his chest pain and hopefully make him live longer.
The younger you are when you stop smoking, the greater the chance of your body being able to repair itself.
I started smoking when I was 15, but when I started to work out, I realised that my body wasn't responding really well. So I decided it was either the smoking or fitness, so I cut out the smoking.
In Britain today, there are 11 million ex-smokers. 3 out of 4 of them have broken their addiction to cigarettes without any help.
Coffee, cigarette, things, Monday. Give up smoking. Yep, right. Tuesday. Well, I haven't done very well. This is all the cigarettes I smoked yesterday, and but I am definitely going to give up today. It's Tuesday today, and I'm definitely going to give up today. Well. Very well yesterday, and it's now Wednesday, and I smoked an awful lot of cigarettes yesterday, and this is disgusting. I'm definitely going to give up today.
The nicotine in cigarettes is a highly addictive drug. Smoking physically changes the brain, making it more receptive to nicotine. These brain scans show what happens when the same amount of nicotine is given to a smoker and a non-smoker. The red areas indicate high nicotine levels. Far more nicotine reaches the smoker's brain, proving that it's different from a non-smoker's brain. Once the brain has been affected, the dependence on nicotine becomes very powerful.
when my dad was ill from smoking, I tried to stop smoking. He was at the hospital like every couple of weeks and that. They done untold tests, they stuck cameras down his throat and everything to find out what this was. They couldn't find out what it was, so he had the operation and they cut open all his lung, all the back of his back to get to his lung, and they took a bit of it off and they just found out that it was pleurisy or something on the lungs, but smoking's really bad for him. And when he was up there, when he was ill in bed smoking, he asked my mum to bring him up fags that day as well. Just wanted a fag straight away.
All forms of addiction have one thing in common. You do something,